Let's get back to business with Abby Steiner. My last video I dropped was an experiment that performed well, but those edits take a long time. It is not something that I can always do. Part 2 will be released soon. Special thanks to David Claus for his contribution of $5, and any amount goes a long way. YouTube is great, but it is not something to quit your day job over while we get this channel on the road. I definitely welcome donations, but as always, likes and comments also go a long way. And special thanks goes to After News Delight. He came out with a dope video the other day titled Abby Steiner 100, 200, 400 meters. So make sure you guys check that out. In the last video that took place about a month ago, I took a look at how Abby Steiner would do in the 60-meter dash. Well, the focus today is to analyze her performance in the 100 meters and compare that against my favorite athletes this year. That includes TT Terry and Aleia Hobbs. I also added Shikari Richardson to that mix simply because she is a polarizing figure. It's like a yin and yang when it comes to those two individuals. And as long as Richardson can stay committed and healthy, she could do okay. Now, honorable mention does go out to Tamara Clark, and I hope to see her in more competitions next year. Now, what you see in front of you is how these ladies would stack up based on your average this season. The fastest this season was Aleia Hobbs, finishing with an average time of 10:94. Right behind her was TT Terry, finishing her season with an average time of 11 seconds. And Richardson finished this season with an average speed of 11:08. And if you were to add Abby Steiner into this mix, she would fall slightly right behind TT Terry this season with an average time of 11:03, literally by a half a foot. Now, with all this in mind, Steiner ran the fewest number of races in the 100 meters compared to Aleia Hobbs, TT Terry, and Richardson. Here is the breakdown in the total number of races. Terry holds the top spot at 25. Hobbs comes in second with 19, followed by Richardson at 11. And lastly, we have Steiner at 5. I definitely would like to see Abby Steiner run more of these races, as the 100 meters is the top 5 most watched track and field event. And then you have the Jamaican athletes like Shelly and Fraser Pryce, Shericka Jackson, Elaine Thompson Herah, putting that event on fire. But what I have noticed this year is that track and field is slowly turning into a personality brand and fan favorite as opposed to winning medals, at least for women's track and field, which I find quite interesting from my perspective. Let's take, for instance, Aleia Hobbs. She is clearly the fastest US lady, but she has the least media attention compared to the rest of the ladies. Then you have someone like Shikari Richardson, who is the slowest lady that I have reported on my channel compared to everyone on here thus far. However, she was still the most popular lady in the 100 meters who ran the least amount of races, and again, to emphasize, with the worst times in comparison. So please help me make some sense out of that. And this brings me to Abby Steiner. Doesn't matter if she comes first place or fifth place out of any of these races, or even finishing top 10. Would that even matter to you? I had a conversation with After News Delight, and we mentioned that if Abby still comes in fifth place next year in the 200 meters, that's still a win for us regardless. And at this point, quite honestly, Richardson just needs to show up to work. And as I have said before in a prior video is that numbers don't lie, but they tell a story. We need to keep in mind that all these times for Steiner in the 100 meters took place while she was in college, so it is a much different environment when you step out to the pros. You now have to adjust to traveling, time zone differences like how one of my subscribers pointed out, and shout out to subscriber FBI for that. For me, you also have the food. You might not enjoy the nutrition overseas. And if you are not a popular star, these trips become very expensive and must be paid for out of pocket, to say the least, which adds additional stress. And the weather also plays a factor. Also, your family, friends, and pets not being close might be tough for some to deal with. So all these things you have to keep in mind. Let me now go ahead and transition into Abby Steiner's 5 meets in the 100 meters while she was in college. In April at the Florida Relays, she finished with a time of 11:10 with a wind reading of 1.5. Then, at the Joe May Invitational at LSU, she finished first place with a time of 10:92. And then, on day 2 of the Southeastern Conference, she finished second place with a time of 11:02. And at the NCAA East preliminary meet on day 2, she finished with a time of 11:04. And at the last event of her college season, she finished third place with a time of 11:08. Finished right behind Julian Alfred and Kimber Nelson. Kimber Nelson, if you recall, also went pro and ran the first leg of the 4x100 for the Jamaican team at the championships, where that event came with a lot of controversy from the Jamaicans, who were the favorites and lost that day. But I think they were too calm and took the race for granted. Here is a clip I found of how they acted up before that race outside of Elaine, who stood solid like a rock.
Go on, Shelly. Go on, Shelly.
Now here is my commentary to all of this Steiner info. Yes, Abby can run a lot of events from the 60 all the way to the 400. Now that she is pro, she has a lot more to worry about than a Julian Alfred or Kimber Nelson at this point. Let me bring that picture and overlay what it looks like when you add Elaine Thompson Herah, followed by Shericka Jackson, and lastly, Shelly and Fraser Pryce, to say the least. Steiner now has a bigger gap to fill on the international level if she ran the 100 meters. If this was the European circuit, she would dominate and be the Usain comparison of Femke Ball. But what does Steiner need to improve on at this race? First, her form and swinging arms is unique. She's been running that way probably since she was born. I honestly would not change it at this point. I think she has maximized that dynamic to the point where it is a physical advantage that fits her own body type perfectly, and it has worked well for her since. But as I reiterated back in the 60-meter video, she needs to improve her reaction time and get off those blocks quickly. She cannot afford to have a slow start now that she is pro. In her earlier years in high school and college, it did not matter because she's so quick to make up that pace. But that is where all 3 women from the Jamaican team currently dominate. especially Shelly and Fraser Pryce. So it is nothing but reaction drills this off season, which I think she will have a lot of time to practice since she has graduated. And if she does end up running an average time of 11 flat again next season, then keep the following in mind. That is still an amazing improvement due to all those professional factors like international trips, especially overseas, adjusting to the food, culture, customs, and weather, to say the least. And that is all I have for this video. I'll see you guys later. Have a great day.